Introduction. It was meant to be the most glorious celebration the kingdom had seen in decades. The union of Princess Elira of Montverre and Prince Theon of Castagna. Diplomats traveled for days. The cathedral was dressed in gold and silk, and the guest list included nobility from every known kingdom. But within hours of the ceremony beginning, something happened. Something so strange that it was quietly erased from all records, all portraits, and even from the public memory. Because by the end of the night, every single guest at the royal wedding was drugged. Their minds twisted, their eyes empty, their mouths murmuring the same single phrase. Only the bride remained untouched, and she never spoke of it again. The bride who refused to smile. Princess Elira was unlike most royal daughters. She rarely appeared at court and spent most of her time in the royal conservatory, not reading poetry or playing music, but studying ancient pharmacology and medicinal practices of forgotten civilizations. Her mother, Queen Lurelia, was known to say, "She treats the body like a lock and the mind like a key." When her marriage to Prince Theon was announced, Elira didn't smile. Not during the engagement ball, not during the dress fitting, not even when her future husband gave her a golden locket inscribed with the words, "In unity, clarity." Those who knew her said she looked calm, but something sat behind her eyes, calculating, cautious, and cold. The toast of a century. The wedding was held in the Hall of Mirrors, a cavernous chamber lined with glass panels and gold frames, known for amplifying sound and reflecting every flicker of candlelight 100-fold. At precisely 7:07 p.m., guests raised their crystal goblets. Each one contained a clear, tasteless liquid said to be a special wine infused with flowers from both kingdoms. The king made the toast. The queen wept. The priest offered blessings. But Elira didn't drink. Neither did her lady-in-waiting, who was later found unconscious in the garden with a torn page from an apothecary's manual clutched in her hand. The eyes that wouldn't blink. By 9 p.m., the wedding band was still playing, but no one was dancing. Guests stood in place, swaying slowly. Some laughed at nothing. Others whispered into their own hands. A duke was found kneeling before a marble pillar, murmuring, "She sees us now. She sees us all." The prince's sister reportedly clawed at her veil, whispering, "Mirror in the mirror, take the skin." All the while, Elira walked calmly through the crowd, untouched and unflinching. Some say she had placed wax in her ears. Others say she took an antidote before anyone else arrived. But the most persistent rumor? She had planned it all. The page that was burned. A palace guard named Markin claimed to have discovered the truth. He said he found an ancient scroll in the princess's chamber the night before the wedding, covered in handwritten annotations in her unmistakable script. The scroll, written in Old Vendrillion, described a ceremonial drug once used by high priestesses to induce shared visions in large groups, binding their perceptions together, erasing individuality, and creating a single collective consciousness. It was banned centuries ago. Markin brought the scroll to the queen's advisor. The next morning, he was dead. His tongue had been cut out and pinned to his tunic. The phrase they all spoke. By midnight, every guest, from kings to stable boys, was standing in a circle around the altar. Their eyes were wide. Their lips were moving. They all repeated one sentence. "The bride has no shadow." Over and over, in unison, hundreds of them, even the prince. When guards tried to intervene, they froze. Some fell into trances. A few began to chant along. Only Elira remained silent, standing at the center of the spiral of voices. The wedding that never ended. The morning after, the palace sealed all windows. Servants claimed none of the guests remembered anything. The priest denied the chants. The food tasters insisted nothing was tampered with. But when interrogated, several guests broke into tears for no reason. One diplomat screamed when he saw his reflection. Another pulled out all his teeth with his bare hands. The prince? He was declared medically unfit to rule. He now lives in the eastern wing of the castle, where he paints dozens of identical portraits of Elira, all with blank eyes and no reflection. Elira, now queen, never spoke of the wedding again. What was in the locket? Years later, a maid found the golden locket Elira had been gifted. Inside, it did not contain a picture. Instead, it held a folded piece of vellum parchment that read, "To rule is not to lead. It is to know what they dream when they do not sleep." And on the back, a hand-drawn diagram, a map of the palace, marked with symbols of alchemical origin, and a circle around a hall of mirrors, labeled only Convergence Point. Some say Elira unlocked the minds of her people that night. Others believe she broke the line between dream and waking life, creating a living hallucination no one has fully escaped. But one thing is known. At every wedding since then, the bride is required to drink first, and always, someone checks the mirrors. The preparations no one understood. In the weeks leading up to the royal wedding, Princess Elira dismissed her entire staff. All of them, from her hairdressers to her food tasters, were replaced with silent, uniformed women who did not speak the kingdom's language. They moved with ritual-like precision. Some claimed they wore gloves even in bed. Others whispered they slept in the palace crypt. And at night, smoke rose from Elira's wing. Thick, bitter, dark blue. No one ever saw the fire. Only the smell of crushed roots and old blood filled the corridors. The high priest was called to bless the union, but returned after one visit, trembling, muttering something about the sealed room behind the mirrors. He never returned. The missing children of Montverre. 10 days before the ceremony, 4 orphan boys went missing from the western village. No one cared until their shoes were found outside the cathedral door, perfectly lined up, toes facing inward. The same week, 3 monks were discovered sleeping in the royal courtyard, though they claimed they'd never entered the capital. When questioned, each responded with the exact same words. She has no voice, but she hears everything. After this, Queen Lurelia insisted the wedding be moved indoors. The Hall of Mirrors was chosen, an act many believed was a mistake, because that room, historians now say, was never meant for gatherings. It was once a containment chamber. The ceremony that changed them. Guests arrived from all across the realm, but when they entered the hall, something shifted. Even the most outspoken nobles fell silent. The air was too still, too thick. The moment Elira entered, wearing no veil, no smile, and a dress embroidered with thousands of silver threads in the shape of closed eyes, the room grew colder. She walked alone. The prince did not offer his hand. Instead, he stood eyes unfocused, as though looking through her. A servant girl later said she saw Elira whisper to him, "You'll dream of nothing, and remember less." The drink of unity. Each guest was given a goblet of memory wine, a Montverre tradition that dates back centuries. The wine was said to carry herbs of insight and vision, but no one knew its modern recipe. That night, the goblets were slightly tinted blue. Every guest drank. Elira raised her glass, but poured hers on the floor, as if feeding something beneath the stones. And when the clinking of goblets faded, a low, inhuman hum began. No one knew where it came from. Some said it was the chandeliers. Others said it was the mirrors themselves, vibrating. But all the guests started smiling. The vision spiral. One by one, the guests began to move in circles, not dancing, but rotating in synchronized steps, their eyes wide open, hands limp by their sides. No one gave them orders. No one noticed that there was no music playing anymore. One noble woman, Lady Althra, tried to scream. Her voice failed. She collapsed to the floor and crawled toward the exit. A servant saw her mouthing something over and over. The veil is behind the eyes. Don't blink. Don't blink. She later clawed out her own pupils in her sleep. The one who didn't drink. The only other person who refused the wine, besides the bride, was a 14-year-old page boy named Callan. He was seen dumping his goblet into a potted plant while no one was looking. That plant withered instantly. Callan tried to leave the hall, but the moment he reached the doors, he collapsed, blood seeping from his ears. When they revived him days later, he was deaf, mute. The only thing he ever wrote after was a sentence he scratched into his chamber wall with his own fingernails. The mirror showed us backwards, and we believed it. The mirror that cracked itself. At exactly midnight, the central mirror, the one that had hung untouched for 400 years, shattered from the inside. No one had thrown anything. No heat. No pressure. It simply burst. And inside the broken frame, for a brief moment, guests saw something. Not their reflections. Not even the hall. But a circle of figures hooded and swaying, surrounding a faceless woman in a white dress, her chest carved with strange symbols. Some said it was a trick of the light, but no one could explain why the room got darker the moment the mirror broke. The groom's collapse. Prince Theon fell to his knees. He looked up at Elira, eyes pouring with tears. Not sobbing, just silently crying, his mouth locked open in a wide, unnatural grin. He whispered something, again and again. She's inside. She's inside. She's inside. He was taken to the infirmary, where he spent the rest of his life painting but never speaking. Always the same image. A faceless bride, surrounded by copies of herself. The aftermath no one could explain. The next morning, the Hall of Mirrors was empty. All guests were found sleeping in their carriages, as if they had left the event. None remembered how they got there. Most claimed the wedding was lovely. A few insisted it never happened. One guest, a countess from the Southern Isles, would awaken every year on the wedding anniversary and cry for 24 hours, whispering, "She walks again and we cannot wake up." The disappearing record. No official portraits of the wedding survive. No written accounts were preserved. Even the guest list was removed from the royal archive. When an archivist tried to recompile a record of the event 5 years later, he vanished. His notes were found sealed inside a mirror case, along with a piece of parchment that read, "To witness her is to fracture." What Elira did next. Elira was crowned queen without fanfare. She closed the Hall of Mirrors permanently. Its windows were bricked, the doors welded shut, and in front of it, a plaque with no words. No celebrations. No public appearances. She took no consort. Banned portraits. And ordered every mirror in the castle removed, except one, which hung above her bed, covered in cloth. Each year, she would sit alone on her wedding night and light a candle. That candle would burn blue, and she would whisper to no one, "They're almost ready. Next time, we all wake up." The black envelope. Lou Ronfavelle was a keeper of Montverre's royal archive, a post so ancient it required a blood oath. He had read every decree, every coronation transcript, and every letter sent between monarchs since the age of candle law. But one day, while cataloging a shelf labeled royal marriages, he found a sealed black envelope tucked behind a false spine. There was no wax seal, only a pressed imprint. "Do not open if you wish to sleep again." He opened it. Inside was a guest list of Elira's wedding and a map of the Hall of Mirrors. The guest list had his name. He had no memory of attending. The room that wasn't on the map. The map inside the envelope had a detail that no architectural plan ever included, a 13th mirror. Hidden behind the altar, this mirror was not reflective. Instead, it was said to drink light. Luron searched the blueprints of the palace and found no such room. But when he descended into the sublevel crypts beneath the hall, he found a locked door behind rusted scaffolding, perfectly aligned with where the 13th mirror should have been, etched into the stone. All those who forget still remember. All those who remember are already gone. The mirror's reflection. Luron broke the seal. Behind the door was a chamber of pure obsidian walls. In the center stood a covered object nearly 7 feet tall. A mirror, but wrapped in layers of cloth, chains, and wax seals in multiple ancient languages. He peeled back the covering. There was no reflection. Instead, the mirror showed the Hall of Mirrors as it looked during the wedding. People circling, murmuring, eyes empty. And there, standing in the center, was himself, dressed in formal clothes, goblet in hand. He watched as he raised a glass, drank, and smiled. The glass shard. Panicked, Luron fled, but not before a shard of the mirror chipped and sliced his palm. Days later, He began hearing whispers. Mirrors around him flickered. Every time he looked at his reflection, his eyes seemed delayed. At night, his dreams replayed a memory he didn't know he had. The hall, the broken mirror, and Queen Elira whispering directly into his ear. You were the first to remember, and the last to leave. The manuscript that wrote itself. Luron began writing. He wrote day and night, unable to stop. His quill moved of its own will. When he slept, his hand kept writing. Pages filled with diagrams, symbols, unfamiliar languages, chants, and maps. He sealed them into a manuscript titled The Testimony of the Forgotten. But when he tried to submit it to the Royal Historical Council, they told him no one by his name was employed, that the archives had no record of him ever existing. His own birth certificate was missing. The man in the mirror. Then, late one night, Luron woke to find himself standing in front of the sealed 13th mirror again, despite never leaving his home. He tried to move, but couldn't. His reflection blinked, but he did not. Then the reflection spoke. It's your turn now to host the memory, to carry the dream. From that moment on, Luron was never seen again. But sometimes, when people walk by the sealed crypt under Montverre Castle, they swear they hear writing. Fast, furious scribbling. Pages turning. Someone weeping softly. The manuscript that appeared in a dream. 1 year later, a maid in the palace had a dream. In it, she walked down endless stairs to find a man bound in chains, writing with his own blood. He handed her a parchment and said, "Deliver this to the queen. Tell her I remember, and I still see her shadow." When she awoke, her hands were stained with ink, and the parchment was real.